Hello, you're listening to the Neil Lampton Show. My name's Joey, and I'm joined by Paul.
Happy New Year.
And Neil.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, everybody. Let's get straight into Moments of the Week, shall we? Who wants to start? Paul, I've pulled your name out of the hat.
During the Wycombe game, the ball bounced just on the edge of the area, and Bayliss was running full pelt towards it, and he had a marker with him, and he ran past the ball, took his marker with him, and then sort of slowly jogged back to where the ball was in complete freedom. And he was sat there going, yeah, we're not going to keep him that long because that kid is class, just utter class. And every time I've seen him since, I've been more and more impressed with him. And against Chesterfield, he was by far the classiest player on the pitch. So, yeah, Tom Bayliss, there's definitely, I don't know how long we're going to have him for or if he's going to meet his potential, but he was phenomenal. He just shows touches of utter bewildering class. And that's just really nice to see against teams like Chesterfield who are shit.
Can you put him on the Connor Thomas scale of early impressions?
It's difficult because we've discussed this quite a bit recently, not on the pod, but just how football has changed over the years. And there was a really funny period I think it was first half against Chesterfield where the ball came to Tom Bayliss and he basically did a sort of Maradona turn on the ball and got away from his marker, then passed the ball to Mickey Doyle, who had a really easy pass to Chris Stokes and passed the ball straight out of play. And you're like, Doyle's 36, 37, and this kid's 18. And that's how what Bayliss is doing is what 18-year-olds do now. Like, they play football in a very different way to how we were taught, and how I was playing back when I was 18, like 20 years ago. It's just the way that they approach the ball, the way their technique on the ball is just completely different. And that seems to have... Bayliss is the first centre midfielder. I really like Stevenson, but I think Bayliss plays... There's a naturalness to Bayliss, which was very similar to James Maddison. And you can sort of see that those sort of players are becoming... that's going to be the more natural football in the next 5-10 years, is the way that they play. So I think he's a step up on what we saw from young Connor Thomas. I think the way he plays, his whole physique, the whole way he attacks the ball is more James Maddison than Connor Thomas. Connor Thomas was a bit more sort of stand up. It's really hard to describe without actually showing you pictures and all that sort of jazz. But the way that Bayliss plays, he's a very similar sort of manipulator of the ball, a manipulator of his body to James Maddison in that sort of way, instead of like Connor Thomas, who's probably more of a sort of traditional English midfielder.
Neil, have you seen much of Bayliss yet?
Yeah, I've seen quite a bit now, actually. Yeah, agree everything Paul's saying. I think he stands up sort of ahead of those guys because of his sort of physicality. I think that helps him even further in his game. He's got a great stride about him. He'll drive on. The pace, it's an odd sort of pace because he doesn't look particularly fast, but he just makes yards on all the players around him. The amount of times he's just strode past midfielders since he's been in the team has been incredible. So I think that helps him a lot. But he, like Paul said, he's got a lot of that sort of technicality about his game. There's an element of James Maddison about him, sort of how he sort of pivots on the ball and just is quite happy to sort of drop his shoulder as and when he needs to. So yeah, very exciting player. Enjoy him.
Very good. Neil, your moment of the week.
There's been so much going on this week. It was hard to pick just one. I'm enjoying the...
Is that you filibustering because you couldn't think of anything at all?
You know me far too well. But
yeah, actually, actually, there's almost too many to choose from. Let me just go through my mental Rolodex.
When you know which one I'm about to say, this is not much of a moment of the week. I'm going to go with the general inaccuracy of that Michael Doyle song that they keep singing about him never giving the ball away, which is untrue. I mean, it's so much so it's kind of like it's kind of irony now. It's just no, that's not him at all. Especially when they're singing the other game when he basically gave the ball away every other time he got it. And don't get me wrong, I like Doyle in this team. I think he's got a great role to play, but making out that guy really values possession of the football is not true. Yeah, so that was it. I also am quite liking how many yellow cards Tom Bayliss is getting. He's only been in the team 5 games, but I think he's got 3 or 4. It's quite daft because if you look at it like a ref, you would think, oh, I don't know if they do this, but that Bayliss from Coventry, he's got 4 yellow cards in 5 games. God, he's probably a right ruffian. And he's not. He looks like a really sweet guy, and he's just on the wrong end of tackles half the time, and he's just a bit too sort of ungainly in his heading. So, yeah, that's got quite funny as well.
He's definitely quite feisty, isn't he? He's not afraid to stand up for himself and enter into little. There's definitely if you had any criticism, probably the biggest difference, if you want to go between big difference between Connor Thomas and Tom Bayliss, is with Connor Thomas, you never really thought there was a personality out on the pitch. You never saw anything other than sort of a bit of a footballing robot. The thing with Bayliss is the kid's clearly got bags of personality. And in the same way that Maddison clearly has a lot of personality when he plays football, you can't sort of not watch him because you sort of think, something's going to happen here. He's going to... And he seems to get a lot of sort of... I think the first yellow card the guy got on whatever it was, the game he played against Sheffield, was for pushing Bayliss in the chest. He's often in the thick of the melees that are going on at the moment.
Do you remember that bit against Wickham where the guy was kind of giving him grief? He just fouled him and he kind of made out that he was diving or something. And then the next thing you know, you got 6 foot odd Tom Bayliss just standing up and suddenly realising, actually, I'm about a foot taller than you, and just looming over him. Imagine being 18 and being able to do that. It's brilliant.
I do remember those days. I could loom over people.
Of course you do. Yeah. I don't have that luxury, I'm afraid.
I still do it now at the age of 38. Still just loom over people, but not on a football pitch in an aggressive way.
I like the idea that with Bayliss, what's happening is that Robbins has gone to Doyle and said, look, he's a young lad, you're going to need to talk him through the game and blah, blah, blah. And Doyle just gets out there and he's just like, if you don't get booked today, I'm going to burn all your clothes. He's just like, how do you play in central midfield? He's just like, you just get booked and everyone seems to like it, so that's what I do.
Fight stuff. Yeah, it's great.
Obviously the last time we did the pod, the actual game management of Bayliss, and I think he got caught only a couple of times against Chesterfield compared to the number of times he got caught against Cheltenham. He's learning as well. He's not making the same mistakes. Don't want to turn this into a Tom Bayliss love-a-thon, but he really has shown quite a level of sort of intelligence on the pitch from that first game, where I was slightly worried about him being sort of caught out quite a few times. It's just not happening anymore. He's use and speed of use of the ball is getting quicker and quicker, and sort of he's dry. Yeah, sorry, we'll go on to him against Chesterfield, but he's really has impressed over the Christmas period.
I think let's not play anything down that's positive, and I think we can be accused of being somewhat dour on here, can't we? I think the more that we've got to celebrate, the better. Leading me on to my moment of the week, I think towards the start of the season, I had said that I just wasn't sure that I saw the same 20-goal a season striker in Mark McNulty as everyone else did, but that, God damn it, if he's not ramming that back down my throat at the minute. Somebody tweeted a stat today to say that he has scored the same amount of goals as Adam Armstrong at this stage, or one more or something.
Scored in the same amount of games, wasn't it?
Scored in the same amount of games, yeah.
Right. I was going to say that.
And at the moment, I think it's a bit of a weird stat. He's been the person who's won the maximum points, the most or joint most in the division with 4. But Nason has also won us 3 games, if you just basically take the goal as being the winning goal.
Yeah, and what's curious about the entire thing is that a few weeks ago I had said, it might be time to have a look at both of them together, and yet the consensus, albeit one that I haven't been in a few weeks, the consensus seems to be that the man that is really pulling the strings and keeping everything together is completely goalless Max Biamou. Is that a fair
better and better?
Yeah.
I mean, it's really jumping forward to the Chesterfield goal. If you watch the Chesterfield goal, he jumps with his man and he doesn't win the ball, but it goes straight to McNulty. And what Biamou does, which no one else in our team does, none of our other forwards have the ability to do, is he makes the ball a challenge. And if you go to the Wycombe game, he was brilliant against Wycombe in that way that without him, I don't think we'd have won that game with a different striker up alongside McNulty, because the way that Wycombe play is a very physical battle of an attritional game, and he works his bollocks off. And every time that we were under pressure, we punted it long. Even if he doesn't win the ball, he makes life more difficult from the opposition. And it's benefiting McNulty, and I think it's benefiting some of the other players around him, because they're finding a bit more space, because his anticipation of where the ball's going and his work rate, and he's willing to put himself in really difficult positions without winning the ball sometimes, is giving us a platform to play higher up the pitch. So the decision to play Bevan ahead of him is just baffling, because Bevan doesn't do that. He doesn't have that same physical nature. He's not the sort of player you want to use as the target for long balls. Biamu really is just providing. It would be better if he was scoring goals, obviously, but what he's giving that team at the moment is so important when you don't have people like Jody Jones around, because it's just given us a different sort of dimension to our game.
I guess the thing with him not scoring is if what he is doing is massively facilitating the, massive bundle of goals that McNulty is scoring, then it's the same difference, isn't it, I guess? The problem with that is, as we've seen already this season, is that if you've got all your eggs in one basket and then that basket breaks, then you've got a whole floor's worth of broken eggs, as the saying continues to go on.
But as you say, sort of if McNulty and Biamu, between the two of them at the end of the season, on 25, 26 goals, but Biamu's only scored 6 of those, does it matter? Because your front two are giving you that many goals, and I think that's the way you've got to look at it. For me, the fact that Bevan doesn't score is an issue, because I don't see what else he brings. For me, the fact that Biamu doesn't score, I'd prefer it if he did, clearly, but I think he actually adds to the team. I think we're a better team with him on the pitch, regardless of whether or not he's scoring.
We'll cut to the games as we in a second, but just out of just while we're on the subject, I wonder if there's credit due to Robins, where I think we've been critical in recent weeks, or the last month or so. I had a long conversation with a mate of mine who's a Man City fan, and we were talking about how Pep has improved a lot of the players, from Otamendi and Sterling and whoever else. And I wondered that when we started the season, Biamu especially stuck out as a player for a lot of people who really, really, really looked below the level of quality that we needed. And probably him and Vincenti at the same time came in for an awful lot of criticism, whereas Biamu seems to have either improved or at the very least run over his critics quite significantly. Is there something to be said for do you think it's I mean, I guess it's speculation all the time, isn't it? But it's possible that Robins has just done some work with him and got him going. It's a remarkable improvement, I would suggest.
Yeah, I've kind of feel like he just needed to get going more than anything else. And like I say, it's hard to say whether that's down to any specific thing that Robins has done for him, because even earlier in the season he was still showing signs, maybe not his first few games, but after that he was starting to win some headers. And I remember a couple of away games where he didn't miss a header in some form, and suddenly you thought, actually, we've got this sort of pure target man. I mean, the other thing to mention, the other caveat is that, broadly speaking, a lot of our players are having quite poor games. I mean, we're talking sort of mixed performances, and they're doing lots of bad stuff as well as they're doing good stuff. But the good stuff that he's doing, like you say, it's actually aiding the team. And he's going to make a bunch of mistakes because, let's face it, they're all relatively poor players. But when he does the good stuff and when he's kind of working with McNulty, that's actually a benefit to us, isn't it? So I'm with you. Like, I think he's I don't really care if he's not scoring, to be honest, because we are good within the team.
I think, but it's also a case of it's not like we've seen great strides in his ability to play football. We've seen great strides in the fact that we seem to be utilising him as a presence better. if that isn't sort of damning with faint praise.
No, but it's the exact thing that we'd been calling for quite some time, is for the team to have a bit more of a plan and a bit more of a game, I guess, is that to have a point, and if that's happening, then great. I guess, all good. Right, Paul, you're going to talk to us. We're going to talk about Chesterfield in reasonable detail because it was the one that happened 2 days ago or a few days ago. But there have been another 3 games during what is a jam-packed festive period. Paul, you're going to start by talking a little bit about Wycombe, and then we might try and see what we can remember through sherry lenses of Port Vale and the other game?
Carlisle.
There we go. So, Paul, Wycombe, recollections, thoughts, reminiscences?
Well, Wycombe was one of the longest games of football I've ever seen, which didn't include extra time. It lasted, I think, 101 minutes in total. And was, as Jimmo pointed out during the second half, we went 2-0 up, and Wycombe managed to equalise, technically, before they'd scored their first goal, because their first goal sort of came in 50 minutes. But 45 plus 5, and their actual equaliser came on the 49th minute.
Ooh, maths.
Oh, nice. Okay, yeah.
Which is a lovely little bit of... But basically, to cut a very long story short, because it was an amazing game where there were 2 penalties, and the stat that I think some people might have seen, which came through sort of on Twitter like midday on that Friday, was like, Coventry haven't been involved with a penalty for either for or against all season. That changed. And then basically Doyle scored an absolute screamer, which was just a complete fluke because he went in for a tackle and then lobbed the keeper with one of those great goals. As everyone knows, the best thing about Tony Yeboah's goal is the fact it hit the underside of the bar. If that hadn't hit the underside of the bar, you wouldn't see many replays of it because there's many better goals. But the fact it hits the underside of the bar makes that so much better.
It's also because we know Doyle, that we can say that he probably didn't mean it, because people who don't know Doyle see kind of the speed at which he flew into the ball and just how hard he kicked it. And anybody with sort of a normal footballing brain would think, why would anybody want to smash the ball that far forward if they weren't going for something? But we know that's what Doyle likes to do. He likes to smash the ball quite hard forward without any real aim. And what made you realise that he didn't mean it was just his celebration afterwards, which was just of sheer sort of what's just happened here. And he seemed somewhat embarrassed about the fact that he just smashed the ball in from 40 yards.
All I will say is just very quickly on this, is that if there was a player in the world who would practice trying to score from a tackle in training, it would be him.
Yeah. Well, I think the reason I don't think he meant it, because I don't think there's a player alive who would have tried to actually score from that position.
Lauren Robert definitely would have shot from there.
But Lauren Robert wouldn't have gone for a tackle.
I thought you were going to say Lauren Robert is dead or something. Just to prove your point. But
No, it's more the fact that I can't imagine Lauren Robert going for a 50-50 tackle. From what I remember of Lauren Robert, I don't think he went for tackles at 99 in his favour.
He got there quite comfortably, though. It wasn't
to be fair. But, that's... So we went 1-0 up, and then we should have been up before there, but McNulty missed quite a decent chance really early on. And then he made up for that with a nice goal after a nice ball over the top from Vincenti. And he cut inside, and we were 2-0 up. It was a nice little finish, and we were like, yeah, we're 2-0 up. I thought this was going to be really difficult because of the way that Wycombe were playing. And in the first half, as you know, I'm not his biggest fan, but Jordan Willis was brilliant in the first half. And not only brilliant at doing everything he needed as a defender, he was actually really good on the ball. And you were like, this is like shit. That's really sort of a step above what we're playing against. Luckily, in the second half, he was also brilliant at doing everything he needed as a defender, and awful at kicking the ball. So much so that he probably, a better team than Wycombe, would have sort of capitalised 3 or 4 times from some just really horrendous punts up into the air. So it was a really odd one from Jordan Willis. But just goes to show at times you don't have to have a good game of football to have a really important game for the team, because the rest of the game, like his physical challenges and blocking and being in the way and actually doing anything other than the ball being at his feet or having to kick it, he really stood up tall, and that was a sort of really nice to see him do that against Akinfenwa. Also, he did give Akinfenwa a slight shove in the back that Akinfenwa then dived, which was hilarious for everyone who was there. And I think there's a little Twitter gif of it as well, which is just magnificent. So we went 2-0 up, and then they scored just before half-time to make it 2-1. And then they scored right at the start second half with a penalty from, unfortunately, Devon Kelly-Evans gave away, having come on as a sub for Vincenti. And you were like, shit, this is 2-2. And then we went down the other end, and Mark McNulty won a penalty. It's where everyone. I watched it live. I wasn't sure if it was a penalty. It seemed to me like the defender kicked the ball. My mate's argument was that the defender was going to kick the ball, and then McNulty ran between him and the ball, and I thought McNulty ran between him and the ball, but he still kicked the ball, and McNulty fell over. But I haven't seen it again, and to some extent it really doesn't matter because he then blasted the ball into the back of the net, so he was 3-2 up. Then he got booked for diving himself, which was he basically dived because his second touch was horrendous after Nason played him through, where he probably should have scored, and he really should have walked away with a hat trick in that game. Chris Stokes was probably better than he's been for about 18 months. His decision making and final ball was useless, but he was really driving forward. He was getting in decent positions, and you could sort of let him off the fact that nothing worked for him by the fact that he was doing things and getting in positions that he hadn't been doing all season. So it was like, while it wasn't a perfect performance in terms of what he did, it was a perfect performance in the way that he did it, if that makes sense. So yeah, it was a rollicking good game of football. It was a rollicking good spectacle. It was a pretty shit game of football. Sorry, it was Wycombe. It's quite football fans are weird. Wycombe, like shitty little Wycombe. I think at that point we're like third in the table, and their fans were booing them because they just kept punting the ball. Like they have one style of play, and it's called Akinfenwa, and they just hit him from all over the park. And you can sort of see why that would work against some teams if they get players in and around. For us, I think there's got to hold our hands up a little bit. We got very lucky with the opening goal, but we then took that forward, and again there's always good times to score, and I think getting the penalty straight after they equalised put them back in their box a little bit. I think the longer it had gone on 2-2, the more Wycombe were growing into it because Akinfenwa is beginning to boss people around a little bit. So it was great that we got that third goal when we did, and then we rode it out quite comfortably in the end, and we probably should have got a couple more when Nason came on, and they were stretched a little bit at the back. But for me, it was probably not the best footballing performance of the season, but it was the best result in terms of how we ground it out.
Good stuff. Neil, anything to add on Wycombe?
No, it's just quite an exciting game, wasn't it? It was nice to see some. I mean, the quality's never there, and it's not been there for a while, just generally in football, in our level. But in terms of sort of excitement goes, all the added minutes and penalties and shit refereeing decisions, and everybody was a little bit wound up as well. It makes for a better atmosphere, and just as a Rico atmosphere, it was actually quite good. And I know there's not that many people there at the moment, but sometimes it does get quite feisty, and that does aid quite an enjoyable football match atmosphere. So I enjoyed it as a game, and it kind of setting everybody away, looking at the table, thinking, "Here we go, let's really kick on now." And also, Robbins afterwards was all on about the 12 points from 12 possible available. So that also made me quite happy.
Good stuff. Port Vale next. Anybody with any specific observations? Neil, did you see this one?
I did. It was a Boxing Day one though, so I wasn't really very coherent. I can't really remember too much. It just struck me very much as after Lord Mayor's show kind of performance, where we were all looking at the table, sort of expecting us to sort of push on. Port Vale with an awful home record. Oddly, Robbins said they were very hard, or a tough team to sort of go to when actually they shouldn't have been, and it was just.
They had the worst home record, didn't they?
Yeah, and
he said they were just a difficult place to go. They had, out of 24 teams, they had the 24th best home record.
Yeah, we really should have sorted them out, especially having won in the way that we did against Wycombe. We should have been feeling good, eyeing up that top three sort of move that we could have made, and it just felt flat really, which is a shame because Boxing Day, I think we took quite a few people there, and it was a real opportunity, and it just felt like another one of those moments where we kind of we've done it so many times this year where we're not winning kind of consecutive games, and it was another sort of setback. So it just makes you wonder just how much you can sort of trust a win, and whether these wins are happening in isolation or actually there's kind of a sign of a good team there. So Port Vale, no, I'm sorry, my memory, there's just too much football going on. I can't remember the specifics. All I do know is that it was a flat performance, and we never really looked kind of sort of capable of doing anything about it. It was just, I don't know if the pitch made a difference or what. They just seemed sort of jelly-legged on there. They weren't able to really get anything going.
Like you say, I think you wonder how much, and I mean, I know it was the second out of 4 games, but it's a lot of games, isn't it, to go on in that period. You do wonder how difficult it is. I think we've been quite sort of, when it was Jacob Murphy being rested in sort of like November a couple of years ago, I think we were a bit like, can these people not crack on? But then there's other times like this where you think it must be really tough, mustn't it?
On those pitches in this league, in these types of games where they do, there's no sauntering around in these games. You have to work bloody hard. If you don't, you're going to be shown up in League Two matches. And I mean, we saw it the other day when the horrible sort of boggy pitch, and you can see they're tired, and the style of football doesn't lend itself well to kind of taking it easy as well. So I can see and I can understand why, you know, there might be sort of a little bit lethargic at points, but it doesn't help really, because more often than not the other team isn't. And it's just kind of, you sort of think, well, why can't we be that ultra fit team for once? We're the ones where it doesn't seem to affect us. But it didn't affect us, amazingly. We went to Carlisle and then won that game, and then set everything up again for this kind of a big old, 8 was it in the end? 9 points from 12 in the end. That was pretty good.
Carlisle thoughts, Paul?
We should have smashed them.
Well, by the sounds of it, we should have been smashed by ourselves in the first half.
I don't even know if we should have. No, I mean, my perspective of it was they were absolutely dreadful as a unit. They had no sort of shape about them at all. I mean, we even though it was a poor game, we were poor, they were poor. There was lots of poor football on the go, mistakes all over the place. The gaps and just the sheer ability of any team who really had any sort of wherewithal to finish the game off, they would have done it. And we were entirely sort of sloppy throughout, really. And I mean, it should have been like they're not. They weren't. We didn't actually do enough to create the chances, but the opportunity was there. It was those moments where it was like 3 against 2, and we had so many of these kind of just jogging towards the goal. We had players around options, and it was just always the wrong option. So we never really got to the point of having a shot, aside from a couple of times. But it was always this: we were on the attack. There were gaps everywhere. We should have done something about it, and a more clinical team, a more sort of direct and sort of forthright team would have actually got those goals and really made it quite a simple victory. But we didn't. We kind of the goal came from it was just a kind of defensive mistake. Again, he kind of misread it. It went through to McNulty, and in that situation at the moment, you expect him to put it away. I mean, and you expect him when he doesn't have to have sort of a touch, because somehow that touch is letting him down sort of half the time. But no, it was a good finish. He put it away, and we had plenty more opportunities to score. I felt even in the first half, I thought the gaps were there, but there was just something missing, something kind of creative missing in the team, and I don't. It's very much a mismatch and kind of a bunch of players playing at the moment. It's certainly by no means our first choice 11. We've just got so many. And when you look at that midfield, when you've got Kelly Evans, Bayliss, Doyle, and Shipley, I don't think that's a sustainable midfield. I think there are people trying their hardest to make it work for us, and you've got to credit them for that. But as far as kind of a shape that you can feel comfortable with, I don't think that's kind of there at the moment. And we'll probably move on maybe to Kelly Evans in the next game. But I think that's probably the one area where we'll very soon we'll change with the introduction of our new lone guy. What's his name? Barrett, is it?
Josh Barrett?
Barrett, that's it, yeah. Josh
it
Barrett.
is, yeah. Well, let's move on to that game then, shall we? Paul, Chesterfield.
Yeah. Burge punted the ball. I said Max Biamu and his defender challenged for it. The ball fell at McNulty's foot. He was about 25 yards out. He curled a quite well, he killed a speculative effort, which wasn't that hard. He went in the bottom corner. We were in shock. The game then went on in the second half, carried on, and we won. Yay! That's about it, really. It was dire.
More of that next week.
The game was pretty nondescript, but we scored. There you go.
Is that really all? I think. Do you want to talk about Bayliss a little more?
You must.
Well,
yeah.
I mean, Bayliss had a really good game. Like, he's just a really classy footballer. He drove into the box. His options are good. He can use both feet. But it's just, I mean, Chesterfield played one up front for 80 minutes. And they never looked like really... I mean, they probably should have scored in about the 85th minute when the ball dropped into the penalty area. Their guy was like 7 yards out and ballooned over the bar. That happens every game in League One. I mean, League Two, because, you know, we give the opposition at least one easy chance every game. It's whether or not they have someone with a little bit of composure to score. Chesterfield didn't. That's why they're sort of third from bottom in League Two, because they're shit. And I don't think we forced the goalkeeper into a save until probably about the 70th minute. Well, other than the goal when McNulty did quite a nice touch and then had a shot saved. And then that was it. I mean, it was...
Biamu had quite a good chance in the first half.
No, he was offside.
Oh, was he offside? Oh, right, okay. So
yeah.
It's not clear from
yeah, he should have scored, but he was offside, so you went, who cares? I mean, literally, nothing really happened. It was just Chesterfield played the ball around, but we gave them quite a bit of possession, but they're Chesterfield, so they didn't really use it particularly well, because they kept trying to play these inch-perfect Steven Gerrard, Paul Scholes-esque passes to their lone striker. They couldn't do it. Who knew? And we didn't really...
They tried to keep the ball of it, didn't they? Oddly,
yeah.
you don't see that much at this level. This was one team that were desperate to kind of be a passing team, and it kind of reminded me of us when we did the whole sterile passing kind of thing, where you kind of, they were trying to find gaps and they were trying to keep hold of the ball and value it, but actually they didn't have the quality or they didn't have the surface to allow them to do that. And it was just, if we'd been a little bit more pressing, because I think we probably could have really got into their goalkeeper and into their defenders as well, we probably could have taken advantage of that. And we still did press, but yeah, they were there for the taking, I thought.
I mean, Chesterfield were awful, and we won. I mean, it's difficult because we scored quite early on, so, and we know we're not the sort of team who go and try and rout teams 5-0, so we were happy to have scored, and Chesterfield weren't ever really sort of desperate to equalise in terms of sort of going for the jugular. They were just trying to play this style of, as Neil said, a passing style of game, which was fine, because it's a bit like me having a fight with my daughter. She can hit me 1,000 times. She's 2. She's not going to hurt me. So it's a bit like that with Chesterfield. They just didn't have anyone with the ability to play the final ball, which they were trying to play. So the ball went, they got the ball. They'd try this amazing pass, and Willis or Davis would cut it out, and then we'd give the ball away a couple of minutes later, and they'd have a couple of minutes of passing, and then they'd try a killer through ball, which would be cut out. And it was like, it just wasn't. It just wasn't an interesting game of football. We won, yay. Was it anything which you can build on for the future? Not really. Was it anything which you think we played against a better team? It's almost irrelevant. It's almost impossible to actually analyse the game with anything other than it was the fourth game in 10 days, whatever it was. We won 1-0. We did exactly what we needed to do, which is what we haven't done against the shitter teams in the division. And McNulty's still on fire. The only worry is we now only have McNulty who's scoring goals. We don't have anyone else. But at the end of the day, it's like, well, at least McNulty's scoring goals. And it was, whether or not it would have beaten a goalkeeper other than that goalkeeper, it's difficult to say from the angle you're at. But the goalkeeper was shit. But he didn't have anything to do until like late in the second half.
I think Bayliss has got some goals in him. I think Shipley's got some goals in him as well. I think those two, from midfield, the opportunities they had when they're driving forward and we're kind of flying at the back of their defence, the gaps are there, and maybe, and I'm going to bring up the pitch again, but maybe on a slightly nicer surface, or when they're maybe feeling a little bit more comfortable in the team, or as sort of fully fledged first teamers, they might know what to do with it a bit more. But I think the opportunities are there for goals. So at the moment, McNulty is the only one who's scoring, and that's just a fact. He is the only one scoring, but I think there are some players in that team who could chip in. The opportunities are certainly there for them, especially Bayliss. I mean, the amount of times he just breaks through and he's essentially just driving at a defender. Now, decision is up to him to make the right one. That's a weird way to phrase that sentence, wasn't it? But as long as he, I think he will do it. I think he's got a lot about him, and he had quite a couple of nice shots as well. So, he's on it. I'm not too concerned about the fact that McNulty's the only one scoring. I just think it's more of a lax approach from everybody, but maybe in, I don't know, an actual tighter game where they're kind of forced to make the right decision. Because we had this with the Mowbray's teams where, although they were putting the ball in the net, there were so many opportunities to score more, and it's almost like you know that you're going to get another opportunity, and you kind of saunter in towards the goal, and you're almost not forced to make the right decision because it's. I can't kind of put it into words, but there's that sort of lax attitude that you get when it's. I know it was only 1-0, but it was almost too easy. Sort of as an attacking performance, and even like Kelly Evans, who I thought he looked out of his depth. I've got to be honest. I don't like to sort of pick on him because he's only young and he's surely still learning. But for the majority of the game, he did look out of his depth. But then when it went to 10 men, even he started to kind of cause some issues and create space for opportunities at the back. So yeah, not too concerned with the ability to score goals.
On the Devon Kelly Evans things, I think, and I said this on the last part, I think there are certain players who will play regardless of their form to some extent, and it was interesting that Stokes sort of got back in without Haynes really underperforming, but Stokes got back in. Devon Kelly Evans, over the Christmas period, he came on as a sub against Wycombe. He was then dropped completely from the squad against Port Vale, and then he was put straight back into the... And against one thing we didn't mention against Port Vale, he tried Jack Grimmer and Jordan Willis on the right-hand side as his right back and right midfielder. And you looked at that and you just went, I'm not convinced that's going to work, because Jordan Willis isn't particularly good at football, and Jack Grimmer isn't particularly good at crossing the ball. And he's just like, well, that tells me two things. One, you don't rate Dion Kelly Evans, because Dion Kelly Evans is clearly your third choice right back, because you're prepared to break up your centre back partnership to play Jordan Willis there. And I think we all agree that Jordan Willis and Rod McDonald is a centre back partnership that is one of our better parts of our team, and you're happy to break that up to move Jordan Willis to right back. B, you obviously don't like Devon Kelly Evans because you're prepared to play Jack Grimmer there, and then the next game, Devon Kelly Evans is back in the team, and you're like, that doesn't. If I was Devon Kelly Evans, I would then be shit scared of making mistakes or playing. That wouldn't make me play confidently, because it's almost like, well, I know you've signed that kid from Reading who's a right midfielder. It doesn't matter how I play. I know for the next game where that kid can play, I won't be in the team. And I could be completely wrong. It could be completely wrong. He could have had a stormer, but I think we all know that lad is going to play right midfield against Exeter.
Which is right, which he probably should do, because we brought him in, and I think Kelly Evans is not struggling, but he's not really performing at kind of the appropriate level, I think. Personally, I just don't think he's quite there yet. And I also don't think he's got the sort of the general confidence about him, unlike his brother, who I think when he plays looks perfectly at ease in a first-team football team. But
and that's fair, but I think because when he got in his chance and was playing on the right-hand side midfield, and then we went to Accrington and he got thrown on the left wing, and he were like, you're not comfortable there. You're clearly not comfortable on the left wing. And then a couple of games later he was dropped, and then he was completely out of the squad. And it's just like, well, you can't. I wouldn't expect any player to come. Considering that we gave Mark McNulty 12 games to prove that he wasn't shit, we seem to be giving Devon Kelly Evans 90 minutes, and then, you haven't been brilliant. Therefore, we're not giving him. We haven't given him 10. We haven't given him 10 straight games on the right hand side of midfield and say, are you good enough? We've given him 1, 2, moved him to the left wing, done this with him, done that with him, dropped him, put him on the bench. It's like, well, that's.
I'm judging him on my own sort of personal metrics on this. I wasn't judging McNulty at all on the goals. But that, in my mind, that's irrelevant in the same way it's irrelevant for Biamu. I'm judging them on what I see as a footballer and what I see sort of technique-wise and decisions that they're making and what their kind of impact they're bringing to the team. I mean, other people will judge him differently, and there's probably some pressure on him in his mind because I'm sure he feels like he can perform better, and he's a winger. A winger takes people on, and I'm sure in training, and this is why he keeps getting back into the team, because I'm sure in training he's playing well. But what I'm also saying is, when he's playing poorly, he does look out of his depth. He doesn't look comfortable, and that could be down to size, but it doesn't always have to be. But it could be down to just the fact that he was up against someone who was twice his size, and it was just a clear mismatch. But I don't feel I'm not judging him about things like goals or assists or anything like that. I'm judging just purely on what I see as a footballer, and it's just saying you can only do that, can you? You can only look at them how they're playing and look at the specifics and kind of think, oh, is this person showing me what I want to see from my right winger? And if we've got an option to bring in another, I know he's young, but someone who's kind of from a higher level and might actually make us a better team, versus someone who's had quite a shaky game, again on the right wing, I feel like you have to do it. You can't show sort of any sentiment towards it and just keep him in there because you're kind of hoping for him to become good. If he looks that uncomfortable in the team and you've got another option, you kind of got to go for it, haven't you?
I agree. I just think, I just as a human being, as in given the backing of the manager, and I'd make the same argument for Bevan. You know, I'm not a massive fan of Bevan. I don't think it's fair on Bevan that 1 minute you're the first choice centre forward, then you're out of the team completely. You're not even on the bench. Then suddenly you're the first choice again. Because I don't think that doesn't smack to me that someone's gone, Bevan, I have a lot of confidence in you. It's like, I've got no one else to play now. I'm putting you back in. And I just don't. I don't see how that would make.
He doesn't have another option, though, does he? Because really, what's happening is he has to put him in because he doesn't have any option. But what did he do? Just not put him in?
No, but
for the sake of it.
But the thing is, he demonstrated that he doesn't have faith in him by playing Jack Grimmer there. So it's like, okay, you've made that decision. That's fine. You've gone for the Jack Grimmer on the right-hand side of midfield. But then don't be surprised when Devon Kelly-Evans gets his next chance that he's not.
Yeah. Okay.
He's not brilliant. It's like, give him 5 games. If he's not brilliant after 5 games, and you backed him, you clearly come out and go, Devon, you're my first choice right winger. You're the best right winger in the club. After 5 games, he's still shit. Everyone's hands up. You're not good enough. But when it's like, I've chosen Jack Grimmer above you. Unfortunately, Rob McDonald's wife's just given birth, so I can't try that farcical system again. I've got to put you back in. It's like, well,
I do wonder sometimes if a kid would mind. I wonder, maybe a senior player it might impact them, but a kid saying, "No, you're playing now again for the first team of Coventry City, or your brother's not in the squad." I mean, it could affect him. I do. As you've explained it, I do see what you mean. And the moment you invoked being a human, I immediately was on your side. So,
I think there's parts of me that does like Devon Kelly. I agree with you. There are other things where he doesn't play as well as some of the others. That's fine. It's just, I think, in the same way that was always seemed to happen to Aaron Phillips, where it's like, almost regardless of how hard he played, you knew that in 3 games' time, he wasn't the preferred right back, so he was going to get dropped. I just know that he's not the preferred centre forward, the preferred right midfielder, so it's just sort of, well, yeah. I walked away just going, well, it doesn't matter how he's played. I know he's not going to start the next game, and he must know that as well. And I think he's now 21, 22. And you're like, maybe the same with. If I was Dion Kelly-Evans, I'd be out. In January, I'd be like, no, I'm not. You've proven to me I'm third choice. That's fine. If you think I'm third choice, that's fine. Then let me go because I want to play football. Because I don't want to be here for another 2 years, sat on my ass. I'm a professional footballer. That's what I want. I'm only going to get better by playing games. And maybe it's the same for Devon. Maybe it's like, look, you brought this new kid in from Reading. You clearly don't trust me. Let me go somewhere. I'll go to Nuneaton for the rest of the season.
I mean, the other thing I would say is that they do need to, as footballers, kind of need to recognise that is how it goes sometimes. Maybe Devon more than Dion. Dion's a little bit of a different case because, like you say, there have been clear opportunities where most of us would have put him in, and he's not been brought in. But the whole sort of Devon thing, where I don't think he can have too many complaints, because I think he's been given quite a few opportunities this year, kind of actually ahead of others as well, where he's made the bench, and Robbins has been keen to throw him on. So it is going to be an interesting 6 months for both of those, really, just to see which one moves forward, because my preference has always been actually Dion as a footballer. I think he's a really nice fullback, but quite whether Robbins, which is always a shame as well, because I would like to see him stick at the club, because managers are sort of transient, aren't they? You know, before we know, Robbins could be gone in 6 months' time, and then we've lost a good right back because he didn't get on with the manager within that period.
The dream, clearly, is still to see them play as part of a back five, both at wing back, surely. That's the bit that I'm surprised no one has said yet. In a Hurricane-style twist, that we have twin fullbacks or twin wing-backs. That's got to be something. We've got to see that at least once before one of them goes, surely.
The beauty and the symmetry there would be fantastic, wouldn't it? The mirror image of those two playing. Make it happen maybe last game of the season, just as a, get us promoted with those two just flanking us. Can we also talk just shortly about Doyle and just how hilarious it is that he often plays quite poorly, but he still has to be the captain that G's everybody up and has a go at everybody. And you sort of think, does there come a point where he starts to become a little bit embarrassed by the fact that how often he has to shout at players while he's smashing the ball out of play every other touch? It's just, I mean, some people would have some shame and I might keep quiet now, but he can't. He's the captain. He's got to keep having a go at people. And eventually someone's just going to say to him, did you see what you just did with that ball then? You smashed it out for no reason at all. And you're having a go at me. It's just a weird... You've just got to be headstrong, haven't you, as a captain, I guess? But it's quite strange.
I think there's about 6 or 7 man of the matches given out each game. And I think Doyle's won at least one of those man of the matches in every single game played this season. As you say, regardless of how good or bad he has been, someone somewhere would have had him as their man of the match.
Yes.
And it's just, Bayliss just outshone him on against Chesterfield. He just looked a class above considering there were 5 centre midfielders and he must have been the youngest. You were like, no, you're the one with class. But, I'm not, for me, I wouldn't bring Kelly back when he gets fit. I think Bayliss has shown that by driving into the box and picking the right option and making us play in the way that I was always hoping that Stevenson would make us play a bit more expansively. I'd like to have seen him in the team with Jody Jones. I think that would have been really useful for the side, for having that sort of giving Jody someone taking the pressure off him when he was in a good spell.
A couple of points on Doyle that we'll use as a bit of a segue into listener questions. Firstly, and succinctly from you and Rowe on Twitter, is Doyle good or shit? I'm a bit confused by that, which I guess is somewhat of a rhetorical question. I wanted to quickly drop in an observation from one of my favourite things that I saw on TV a few years ago, which was that Keane and Vieira documentary.
Yeah, I remember that.
And I remember they asked the pair of them, what does it mean to be a good captain? And Vieira said that it's about sort of leading by example and encouraging people and being a role model and yada, yada, yada. And hilariously, Roy Keane was asked next, and he said, it's about being the best player on the pitch all the time, which I thought was such a beautifully illustrative response from both of them. I would hazard at the minute that Doyle isn't really fulfilling either of those criteria, is he? As an idea.
He's still a handy captain, isn't it? It's strange. It's such an odd one to watch because you recognise what he brings as a sort of from a leadership sort of quality, but like you say, he's not really leading from example when he's just making mistake after mistake. It's like,
but he's become something of a totem, hasn't he? Which in a weird way is kind of maybe that's enough. He's sort of.
Yeah, exactly.
He's a figurehead. And I guess he's the sort of captain, in a weird way, that's a bit like be careful what you wish for, because I don't think we're that bothered by captains, but we have bemoaned a lack of someone who is an obvious captain, and you can say what you want about him, but he's clearly a choice as captain, isn't he?
Oh, God, he's our captain, yeah, and you can't leave him out the team, really. Because even if he's just being a bastard to someone on that pitch, it's useful. Even if he's just having to go at the referee, that's useful. And it's a strange thing to say about him, but he's just got so much sort of nous about him. Even when he's playing poorly, I mean, he's still having to go at other players and at least trying to make sure that they're not going to play poorly as well. Probably realising that they can't really offset his failures as well.
I mean, you can see why Pompey just sort of got promoted and then sort of
Thanks for your time, Doyle.
Yeah, it was like cheers, but you've done as well, but time to jog on now.
We've decided we're going to go down more of a football route this season.
Yeah.
But in that instance, is he shit or good? Literally within 2 passes, he is both brilliant and shit.
Yeah.
Yes.
It all depends on whether or not that pass is 5 yards further to the left or to the right.
All I will say is it's good to have you back, Doyle. Like a warm pair of slippers. Right, let's have a tiny little bit of music and then we will fly through some listener questions. Okay, then, right, I'm going to sort of quick fire most of these because they go from... We've got quite a lot, actually, and we've got some good questions, and some are sort of a bit rhetorical and light-hearted, and some of them are serious. So I'm going to sort of pass them between one and the other, and if you can try and give some reasonably brief answers. Paul, a message from Ian Heron on Twitter. Hi, Ian. Are promotion and a cup run mutually exclusive? If so, who would you drop or field on Saturday?
Oh, it's difficult, isn't it? Because we're playing against a Premier League team who clearly don't give a shit. But if Mark Hughes is still in charge, they will need to win that game. But you also saw some of the responses, like people like Mark McNulty, who is the sort of player we really desperately need to keep fit, is desperate to play and prove himself. It's one of those. I think it would do everyone the world of good if we beat Stoke. Also, I don't think anyone would particularly care if we lost against Stoke. Just probably take Bayliss out because we don't want Premier League teams to realise how good he is, but I think Premier League teams already know everything about our academy players a couple of years before we do. So, in a wrong rambling answer, I don't care. That's long and short of it. I really couldn't give a shit, to be honest, about the Stoke game.
Paul, are you going?
The only interesting, as you know, is like the only interesting thing I think is the pricing structure. Other than that, the game's a bit of an irrelevance.
Are you going on Saturday, Paul?
No. As I said, I mean, the reason that I didn't really see the Wickham's first goal was because me and Pritchard were having a massive row about whether or not I should attend the game against Stoke. Then against Chesterfield, because the game was quite boring, we had a proper longer discussion about it and thrashed it out a bit more. But the long and short of it is, we have probably 5,000 or 6,000 who will go regardless of how much. Well, probably 4,000 or 5,000 who will go regardless of what they charge. And those 4,000 or 5,000 would have gone if we'd have charged 30 quid, or we're charging 22 quid, or they'd charge 15. You have another couple of thousand, because it's the FA Cup, who probably look a bit more at the price, and I'm one of those. Even though it's only 2 quid, I'd have gone if it was 20 quid. 22 quid is just like, and buying on the gate 25 quid is just a definite no-no. And then you have the people who pick and choose, and the pick and choosers aren't going to go against Stoke reserves for 22 quid. So you alienate, you disincentivise those who would go, or who are sort of 70% likely to go, you've disincentivised those. Those who are 40, 50%, you've disincentivised those as well. And I know the argument is, but the more they'd have to get more people in. But
6,000 more people in.
But the thing is, at the start of the season, no one expected us to get to the FA Cup third round and play a Premier League club at home. It's a free budget game. It's not one they had.
It's
in
not.
The budget.
People going on about we need money and funds for transfer window, don't we? I mean, we can't conjure them up out of thin air.
But the thing is, it's like any profit they make out of this game is unexpected.
But it's
a bonus.
But it's like you're saying that you see a £5 note on the floor and a £10 note on the floor, and it doesn't matter which one you pick up because they're both free money anyway. £10 will give you more money.
It will do, but the thing is, it's like you've also got to look at it. Like there are Cov fans who you could have given the fans a little bit here. You could have given them a little bit. Like 20 quid is nothing. Like it's 2 quid off, but it's just it's all about like little sort of bars or little. I can't remember the right word, but it's like for me, it's like 20 quid was like fine. I'll pay 20 quid to watch play Stoke at home in the FA Cup. 22 quid, no. And I know it's 2 quid, and had all these arguments with Pritchard. At the end of the day, we're in third in the division, and we're in the third round of the FA Cup.
And nobody's coming.
And they could be like, no one's attendance against Chesterfield was shit. And it's like and I was like talking to my friend. It was like, who are you playing today? Chesterfield. And it's like, yeah, whoever would have said, you'd have gone, because it's fucking League Two. Stoke should be a bit of a draw, but then you've got to sort of meet the fans halfway. And I don't think they have met the fans halfway. They've sort of gone, well, we're charging this. This is what we charge anyway. Who cares? And you're like, well, FA Cup attendances are already down on what they used to be because people aren't as insensitive by the FA Cup. It's just after Christmas, and the fans hate the owners. And it's like you could have given a little bit to the fans. Or the game against Cambridge is now on a Tuesday night. Why not go £25 and you get a Cambridge ticket free? You'd be like, oh, okay, at least I understand.
Hey, Paul, if you made of money, you can't just go giving away tickets all the time.
The thing is, we're playing in a 32,000-seater stadium, and we're playing in front of 6,000 people.
But you did the maths yourself. You said that only 2,000 are bothered about the price. You get the extra 2,000 in, it doesn't make any difference. We don't make any money still.
But the thing is, it's like you've got the extra 2,000. But the thing, those extra 2,000 might come for the next couple of games.
But they might. Those
2,000 who aren't coming at the moment might come to 5 games.
I feel like this is a
get them back in through the door somehow.
I feel like this is a reasonably well-trodden road and one that blocks what is quite a considerable number of other questions. And so, thinking back to the brief at the start of this exercise of short, sharp answers, I'm going to,
we're doing well, aren't we?
I'm going to toss this on. Yeah, part 3, 4, and 5 of this podcast will be out over the next few days. Neil, message from Rob Jones: is Bayliss better than Madders at this stage of first-team appearances? I'm asking the wrong person here, aren't I?
Just different players can't judge different abilities. If you want someone who's really fast and can drive past players, Bayliss is better at it. If you want someone who's just bloody beautiful footballer, they're both quite close, but Maddison has got something exceptional. Yeah, I can't compare. They offer different things.
Very quickly on Madders, did anyone see the stat from this week about him?
Which one? There was one about him, most chances created in Europe?
In Europe, yeah.
That's incredible.
What a legend. Stephen Fry tweeted him the other day. It's fabulous watching his career unfold, isn't it?
We knew it. Yeah. We knew it as well.
And another question from Rob Jones, this one for Paul. Do you think Max will get his 20th goal in March or April?
What, 2022?
You what?
I don't think he's going to get 20 goals between now and May 2018.
I have a feeling that Rob doesn't either. It might have been Callum Hands on Twitter. Is it physically possible for Paul to be negative? I don't know what he's getting at there. I think that's.
I was going to say, I mean, obviously it is, but we're trying to keep this short and we're trying to be positive with third. Like, yay! I think someone. I don't know if you're going to ask the question, but someone did sort of say, "I've been twice this season. Are we normally this shit, or have I just been unlucky?" And it's like, well, I think we're just playing in a very, very, very poor league, and you can be shit for long periods and have players playing below par, but you can probably still win enough games.
Alex Hudson on Twitter, late question for the pod if possible. I've only been to 2 games this season. Sutton United in pre-season and Port Vale. Have we been that poor all season, or were those games not representative of the rest of the season? If they were, then how the hell are we third?
You have to be utter dog shit not to go up in this league. You really have to. I mean, that
seems to be the case, doesn't it?
Looks like it.
Another one from Rob Jones, this time for Neil. After our superb festive run, is it fair to conclude that Robbins is better than Pep? I'm feeling that a lot more of these are flippant than real.
He's not taking this seriously.
He's not.
Take it more seriously, Rob Jones.
Take it more seriously, Rob Jones. Paul, Exeter are charging £27 for West Brom. That's a question about, that was a part of the conversation about ticket prices.
Yeah, I mean, but as I said at the point, Exeter have only got 3,000, and Exeter, it doesn't take a lot to fill Exeter's ground. As I keep saying, we do have 32,000 seats that we could try and fill. I know we're not going to, but at least we could give some incentive to the fans to try and come back.
I really enjoyed this on the subject. Maybe this is the closing sentiment of that from friend of the show, Ian Heron again. Why don't you reduce the price of your T-shirts so that everyone at the Rico on Saturday can wear one? A great suggestion. T-shirts still available, of course, through neelamptyshow.co.uk. Neil, Biamu, in, out, or shake it all about? Would McNulty be scoring without him or not? Question from Simon Miller.
He probably would be, but still, he needs a strike partner, and you've got someone who's playing quite well. So definitely in for me.
A ringing endorsement there. Paul, from Rich on Twitter, who is our most indispensable player right now?
You know.
Well,
you just don't want to say it.
I think if Nason, I'm going to get in trouble here, but if Nason was fully fit, I think if Nason was played the same amount of minutes as fucking McNulty, I think, and I'm going to get shot down for this, alongside Biamu, I think Nason would have scored more goals. If he'd have played the Cheltenham game and the Wickham game, he also probably would have scored 1 or 2 in those games, because he's a really good striker and those two teams defensively was shit. But as he's not fit and we only have one person scoring goals, then it has to be the person scoring goals. I personally, from what I've seen, I think Nason, if we'd have played, if we hadn't had McNulty and Nason had played all the games, I think he probably would have been on probably 12 to 15 goals this season.
Is he still here?
Well, that was
he's injured.
Well, no, but his loan runs out, doesn't he? I think he's possibly not coming back, but we don't know.
Well, no, I don't think anyone really knows about. I promise, it's all rumours. It's like the Rob McDonald. Rob McDonald's been sold. He's not. His wife's given birth. He's not at the game because he's being a good dad. Fuck off.
Helpfully, the BBC website now calculates minutes per goal for you. Mark McNulty, 190 minutes per goal. Dukins, are we going for Dukins? I think that is right, isn't it?
That's correct, isn't it?
Dukins nays on 153 minutes per goal. But I think it's slightly reductive because it doesn't tell you the circumstances in which those, if Nason comes in against a shit team who are tired, or blah, 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 blah. But, I think it's not unrealistic to suggest that it's possible that had Nason played more games, then he could have got more goals. But I also think that, on the face of it, I do think it's a little bit churlish for you to not just say it's Mark McNulty at the minute.
But the thing is, basically, Biamu didn't play the first half against Carlisle, where I understand that, Neil's correct me, but didn't understand we weren't that good. And it's just like, for me, Biamu gives us something up front where we don't have, unfortunately, we don't have a direct replacement for Biamu in the squad. Now, if we brought someone in like Biamu who scored goals, then it's like I'd have no truck with dropping Biamu. It's not like I think he's unbelievably brilliant. It's just, having watched him against Wickham, especially, and again against Chesterfield, is even though he's not sort of heading the ball to his teammate, him being there and being a pain in the ass is making our attack. And it doesn't surprise me that our attack is looking better at the moment with Biamu sort of playing the way he is. I think he does add quite a lot to our team.
Can I just throw Michael Doyle into that as an answer as well, just based on the fact that if at the moment we didn't have Michael Doyle, who would be in that central midfield? Whoever it is, it would not be good enough or strong enough for this league, I don't think. Bayliss and Stevenson wouldn't do it. Bayliss and Maycott wouldn't be good enough, I don't think. So I think Doyle, as much as I like to have a laugh at him because it's funny, he's still a huge part of the team.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah, I agree with that as well.
Unbelievable that a scrappy
it's almost like you got to see who the other options are. Like Stokes could get injured. Stokes is playing better because you trust Haynes. It's like Burge is probably one of the players who's up there, probably top 5 for Player of the Year. But if he got injured, is Liam O'Brien? Liam O'Brien isn't a complete disaster.
Yeah, he can get away with it.
Yeah.
A couple of very quick ones from Ian Cooper. Will it really be Carl Baker Day this January? I gather he's training and sort of proving fitness and quality, but we don't know any more than that, do we? Unless you two have knowledge that I don't.
No, he's just there, isn't he?
From Tom Furnival Adams, will you present the first pod of next season in your pants if we get promoted? As I said to him at the time, we are all in our pants all of the time. Adam Sloman, on 23rd, I was in hospital, we won 3-2. 26th, discharged, lose 1-0. Readmitted on the 29th, win 1-0, and on the 30th and the 1st. How long must I be hospitalised before we secure promotion? Adam, first of all, I'm sorry that you've been in hospital all that amount of time, and we wish you all the best. But we will be
come out of hospital till May.
Yeah, we will be hobbling you as soon at our earliest convenience. And the very final...
And if we win promotion because you're in hospital, stay in hospital till about May 2020. So at least we're in the Premier League when you come out of whatever illness you've got, and I do hope you get better sincerely, but I'd also like to be back in the Premier League, so think about that when you're taking your medicine.
He seems like a lovely chap, someone that tweets occasionally, but I wouldn't care if he spent the rest of his life in hospital if we could win some Champions Leagues in my lifetime. I've never met him. I'm just joking.
You're not going to this, right? Unless you go to the hospital.
That's one less listen. That's one listener down.
Down to 3.
We're joking, of course. Get well soon. And the final and most important question, as from Steve Jones on Twitter, as we've won all 4 games I've attended with my podcast T-shirt on, should more City supporters buy them? Guys, thoughts?
Yes,
absolutely. neelamptyshow.co.uk, T-shirts still available. Anyone want to give us anything before we finish up? Any other business?
Rich O, or at Houghton87, basically said that on the last pod, I said if we don't improve, we won't go up. And he said, we lack an identity as a team, but we have just enough to grind it out. A 20-goal striker and some great kids. And everyone else is dire. Now, I took that to mean that he meant the rest of the division was dire, not the rest of our team. But have we improved over the Christmas period? I mean, we've obviously... We're in form at the moment. Do you see us have we got better, or have we just got a bit of luck, or is it just we played shit teams?
It's a big open question to ask at 1 hour and 8 on the on the pod. But Neil, if you want to try and give a reasonably succinct answer, then go for it.
No, I don't think we've got better.
There we go. I
think we've always been one of the best teams in the league. But it doesn't take a lot. Like I say, you have to be very poor not to go up in this league, because everyone I've seen has been dreadful.
There we go. I think that answers that. Paul, your riposte before we finish?
No, I think that's sort of right. I mean, I suppose the thing is, it's like to win the Premier League, you've got to be good for probably 30 to 35 games. Even like if you don't win every game, but you just look, you can sometimes have to be quite good even to lose in the Premier League. And obviously, as it goes further down the league, you're allowed more shit games and still finish higher up the division. In this division, as we have seen, we've played pretty badly about 6 or 7 times out of our 26 games, yet we're still third, which does sort of show that you're given more leeway, you're given more license to be crap at times, and it sort of almost doesn't matter because the opposition aren't sort of compounding that. I suppose the only depressing thing about the Christmas period is, as good as we've done, we haven't actually really opened up a gap between us and 4th or us and 8th. We're still 2 poor results from being outside the playoffs again. And that sort of goes back to that spell where we didn't win games. And if we'd have won 2 of those, we would have clearly made a break because everyone else was losing. And it is critical now because there are about 6 or 7 teams who are on pretty similar form to us, like your Mansfield and teams, Mansfields, Wickhams. They're all sort of grinding out results. And as the pitches get worse, and as it's going to get worse than most because of Wasps, it's important that we do sort of, we need to win. Like, we still need to win 7, 8, 9 out of 10, 15 game spells. It's got to be continuous now. And ignoring the Stoke game, the next game after that is Exeter away, who have a game in hand and are 2 points behind us. But Exeter are on a horrendous run of form because at one point they were about 6 or 7 points clear of us. So, those are the games, we've got to keep. The league is important. It's far more important than the Stoke game.
Lovely stuff. Neil, anything on Sky Blues blog we should know about?
Did some awards. They're just a laugh, aren't they? But yeah, I'm back at it this year, so I'll get a bunch of stuff out over next month.
They are a laugh. I really, really enjoyed them. It's one of my COV highlights of the year. It's good to see them again. Paul, any other business?
No.
In that case, then, thank you both very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, and
cheers,
thank
mate.
you, listener. Bye.